We come back, a documentary about the underground comic artist R. Crumb and his amazing life and times and family.
This is probably the next thing I'm most well known for. I'm just trying to, hook you into who I am here, This sold millions of copies. I got $600 from CBS Records in 1968.
The drawing style is familiar there to anyone who's been following popular art for the last 30 years. It belongs to Robert Crumb, who came out of underground comic books in San Francisco in the 1960s and is now considered one of the great formative influences in comics and satire over the last 3 decades. And if that were all that the new documentary Crumb was about, it would be enough. But Crumb, one of the most painful and revealing documentaries I've ever seen, is about a whole lot more. It begins with Crumb explaining how much of his work is directly inspired by the wounds and hurts he experienced while he was growing up.
If girls would see that I was more kind and sensitive, they would like me more. And they were kind of impressed by the fact that I could draw, but I couldn't understand why they liked these cruel, aggressive guys and not me, because I was more kind and sensitive and everything, more like them. I was more like them. I didn't realize that they didn't want you to be like them, basically.
Then we get a glimpse of his dysfunctional family, including his brother Charles, who was his greatest influence, who started Robert on the road to cartooning, but who dropped it himself and everything else. Charles hasn't left his mother's home in 30 years.
What was your mom like when you were a kid?
She was an amphetamine addict, and these amphetamines would make her act real crazy and do and say all these really crazy things. It had an absolutely devastating effect, I think, on all 5 of us kids.
Another brother, Max, practices strange dietary and religious disciplines. He is also a naturally gifted artist.
When I had that first epileptic fit, was in the 6th grade, I was drawing this picture of my face with charcoal in art class. I got the idea, hey man, you can draw, look at this, started working out. It's the first time I had this artistic experience, And it was so violent to me that I had a seizure.
The movie includes commentary on Crumb's work by his friends and critics who react to its strong and deliberately offensive subject matter.
Here's an example of the kind of thing I'm talking about in Ooga Booga. It's actually a mockery of black people.
Yes, Crumb's work is offensive, and it's meant to be. But after seeing this documentary, we understand that he's not simply drawing these images for fun or to make money. He's drawing them because he has to. Seeing Robert Crumb, learning about his background, meeting his family, we understand that his work, which is dismissed in some quarters as merely cartoons, are a lifeline. It's all that keeps him functioning in a precarious and tragic existence. The movie was directed by Terry Zwigoff, a friend of Crumb's, and he realized Crumb would have never let a stranger get this close. All I can say is, this is one of the most extraordinary and riveting films of the year, and if you see it, you will not forget it.
Well, Roger, just last week I said I don't expect to see a better film this year than Crumb, and I'm sure I won't, because this is why I go to the movies, to be taken into a human life, in this case 3 lives and a family, and we learn things about, you talked about the artistic impulse, and isn't it refreshing to get that high flown in thinking about a movie? You know how rare it is to hear yourself talk like that about a picture? Well, how about this? Have you seen a picture that showed you more about sibling relationships? How about parents raising children and the influences they have? This is a great family drama. Now, we've seen 2 documentaries in the last year. Hoop Dreams, a great family story and influencing kids, and here, this Crumb. I rank them together in quality.
Well, it's a great film, and one of the most amazing things about it is that anyone would allow this kind of a film to be made about them. We're not surprised that the Hoop Dreams people allowed themselves to be filmed. They look pretty wonderful in that film, but in this film, what Crumb is doing is really letting the pain of a lifetime be right there on the screen. And as you look, there's a sequence where we go through shot by shot one of the sequences of one of his comic panels, and it's really rough stuff. And yet, then they pull back and they begin to get into exactly where that came from. Or in another case, the bully that figures in all of his work is a real person who he really still hates from high school. Or the girl that he always wanted to go out with in high school, and it's all right there. He's wearing his heart right there on the screen, and it's so moving.
And every artist could tell the same stories.
Very few would.
I'm sure that's absolutely true. This movie is not coming out until April. The reason we're mentioning it early is, frankly, we want to get it as many playdates in as many cities as we possibly can. Crumb. Demand it in your local movie theater. Coming up next, many of today's biggest stars offer some ideas on how to make American movies